The North Pole is the top of the Earth, and the South Pole is the bottom, of course. Except that the Earth is kind of a ball, and they don't really have tops and bottoms. Granted, the Earth isn't exactly spherical, and it's spinning through space, spinning about an imaginary axis of rotation. One of the points where that axis goes through the Earth, right here in the Arctic Ocean where the Russians planted their flag on the seafloor in 2007, is called the North Pole. Or rather, it's the geographic North Pole, because just like there are different definitions for what a year is, there are different North Poles. For example, compasses don't point to the geographic or spinning top North Pole. They point to the magnetic North Pole, which is incidentally a magnetic South Pole since opposites attract. The magnetic North, actually South Pole, and South, actually North Pole, are an electromagnet caused by swirling convection currents in the Earth's liquid iron outer core. These currents are heavily influenced by the rotation of the Earth, so the magnetic field they generate roughly aligns with the Earth's axis of rotation, but not precisely and not unchangingly. 100 years ago, the magnetic North Pole was located in northern Canada, over 2,000 kilometers south of the geographic North Pole, and it's been moving consistently northwest since then, currently sitting in the middle of the Arctic Ocean 450 kilometers south of the geographic North Pole, and drifting about 55 kilometers closer to Russia each year. What's more, the magnetic South Pole is not on the exact opposite side of the Earth from the magnetic North Pole. It drifts around in a somewhat independent fashion and is currently 20 degrees closer to the equator than magnetic north. Such is the nature of magnetic fields generated by confusingly swirly molten iron deep inside the Earth. But if you imagined instead that there were just a giant perfect bar magnet inside the Earth, then that bar magnet would point towards the geomagnetic North Pole, which is currently located in Ellesmere Island, Nunavut, Canada. This pole, together with the geomagnetic South Pole, which is on the exact opposite side of the Earth, represents the general overall trend of the Earth's magnetic field, especially as it extends into space. So while it's not at all useful for compass navigation on the Earth's surface, it does heavily influence the paths of solar wind particles that cause the aurora, that is, the northern lights. Beautiful. In short, the North Pole's whereabouts depend on what you care about. The Earth spins like a top around the geographic North Pole, compasses point to the magnetic North Pole, which is actually a magnetic South Pole, and the northern lights are strongest in a ring around the geomagnetic North Pole, also a magnetic South Pole. All three North Poles move, too. The magnetic and geomagnetic poles change quite drastically, but even the geographic North Pole moves up to 10 meters a year as the Earth wobbles on its axis due to seasonal air pressure differences across the globe, melting ice caps, and so on. Assuming that the Russians planted their flag exactly at the geographic North Pole in August 2007, not once since then has it been exactly at the pole. It was as far as 12 meters away in 2009 and as close as 20 centimeters in 2010. Right now, it's about 3.5 meters away. Basically, the Earth is doing the biggest, slowest pole dance ever around the Russian flag.
Above the Earth's atmosphere, along Hubble's path, is a mysterious region known as the South Atlantic Anomaly. Space is a hostile environment. Our planet shields us from the harshness of the cosmos, but space telescopes like Hubble spend their lives beyond Earth's shielding atmosphere. Such telescopes are carefully engineered to survive the hostility of space, but there is a danger zone where observations become almost impossible. When satellites pass through this area, they are bombarded with swarms of intensely high-energy particles. This can produce glitches in astronomical data, malfunctioning of onboard electronics, and has even shut down unprepared spacecraft for weeks.
Number 10. Bermuda Triangle disappearances sure go back a long ways. The best example of this is the disappearance of Thomas J. Lynch Jr. and his wife while they were sailing to the West Indies in 1779, 3 years after the United States of America officially became independent. Lynch was a representative of South Carolina and one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. This incident was apparently the first reported disappearance in what was to become known as the territory called the Bermuda Triangle. Number 9. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops in the Bermuda Triangle is thought to be the biggest loss of Navy personnel not related to combat in American military history. It was carrying 309 people and some very heavy cargo. Around March 4, 1918, the vessel, a huge ship that carried fuel to the American fleet during the First World War, stopped off in Barbados to load up with even more cargo before setting off again on its journey back to the States and the port of Baltimore. It never arrived, and a huge recovery mission was deployed in hopes of finding it. It vanished without a trace. Its entire route was retraced and not a single piece of debris was ever found. Since it was believed that German submarines might have gotten to it, and since there was so much cargo that could have floated all over, the fact that nothing was ever found is even more bizarre. Also, what is extremely eerie is the fact that some 23 years later, during the Second World War in 1941, 2 of the Cyclops' sister ships also disappeared along the same route. Number 8. Flight 19 is the name that was given to the mission that consisted of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers that disappeared during a training flight in the Bermuda Triangle on December 15, 1945. All 14 men aboard the 5 planes disappeared without a trace. Flight 19 became one of the most famous Bermuda Triangle incidents when filmmaker Steven Spielberg used it as fodder for his sci-fi horror flick Close Encounter of the Third Kind, in which the mysterious disappearance is explained decades later by an alien abduction. In the movie, the pilots are taken to Mars, but later return to Earth peacefully by their alien captors. Of course, this piece of fiction, as interesting as it may sound, had no proof to it. But what is true is the fact that during the search for the 5 planes, a Martin Mariner flying boat with 13 men on board disappeared over the water too. Number 7. 2 years after the Flight 19 incident on July 3, 1947, a C-54 aircraft took off from Bermuda and apparently flew straight into a thunderstorm, which is odd because the investigation board in Florida, who was called upon to explain the mystery, said the aircraft should have avoided the storm. The tempest would explain why the plane totally disintegrated with no trace, but still, it seems the plane headed way off course right from the beginning of the flight and changed courses twice, going straight into the eye of the storm. With an experienced pilot on board, this is considered extremely conspicuous. Also bizarre is the fact that only 6 people were on board the plane that could usually seat 85 passengers. The ground radio operator is said to have heard a faint SOS that he ignored because he felt it couldn't be a real distress call. The second SOS was apparently clearer, and then there was silence. The plane was never seen or heard from again. Number 6. This U.S. military aircraft was one of the most successful models of its time. The day it disappeared, it was carrying 42 passengers, a group of Navy officers and members of the families who were traveling overseas. It was only about 400 miles from the coast when it simply vanished with no explanation. The pilot hadn't even sent an SOS call. Of course, a thorough investigation was conducted and all possible theories were examined. Could it have been the plane, the weather, the pilot's capabilities? Adding to the mystery is the fact that the plane's cargo contained many life rafts that would have floated on the water if the plane had broken apart on landing. Therefore, they would have been easily traceable. Nothing was ever found. Number 5. A pair of Piper PA jets disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle within 2 years of each other. The first, with 3 people on board, vanished on June 20th, 2005 between the Bahamas' Treasure Cay Island and Fort Pierce in Florida. In a similar incident, the second plane disappeared on April 10th, 2007 near Berry Island. In that case, the pilot was alone on board without any passengers. Number 4. Both these planes, the Star Tiger and Star Ariel, owned by the British airliner, disappeared within a year of each other in very similar circumstances. The Star Tiger left Santa Maria in the Azores on January 30th, 1948, with 29 people on board en route to Bermuda. The Star Ariel took flight on January 17th, 1949, with 20 people on board. Both planes never signaled any distress, and both planes seemed to have vanished into thin air. In the case of the Star Tiger, the radio operator was in contact with the plane and was expecting the aircraft to land in Bermuda at 5 a.m. When it didn't show up on time, a state of emergency was declared and a fleet of 26 airplanes searched for 5 days without ever finding a thing. In 1998, wreckage of another aircraft owned by the same company was found in the Andes. That plane had vanished the year before the Star Tiger disappearance, but nothing has ever been found of the other 2 Star planes. That airline certainly seemed to have had a strange track record, that's for sure. Number 3. Owned by a rich businessman who ran a popular hotel on the Atlantic coast in Miami, Florida, Witchcraft was a 23-foot luxury cabin cruiser. One December night, the owner of the boat invited his father onto the cruiser to see Christmas lights along the shore. They didn't even go a mile offshore. At 9 p.m., the Coast Guard got a call from the owner saying that he thought his boat had hit something, that it wasn't an emergency, but that he required towing. He also said he'd send up a flare to indicate his position. The Coast Guard got to the location less than 20 minutes later, but the ship was MIA and no flare was ever spotted. A 1,200 square mile search was conducted, but nothing was ever found. The 2 men in the boat just seemed to have vanished. In this case, wouldn't you have suspected foul play? I'm not sure the owner of the boat was on the up and up. Number 2. The Marine Sulphur Queen was a T2 tanker that carried sulfur, as its name indicated. When it disappeared, it was going from Beaumont, Texas to Norfolk, Virginia. On February 4th, 1963, the tanker apparently sent a completely normal radio message but was reported missing by February 6th. 39 crew members were lost. Again, the SS Marine Sulphur Queen had followed in the footsteps of its sister ship, the SS Sylvia L. Osa, that had gone down east of Bermuda in 1976. In the case of that ship, some debris and an empty lifeboat were found at least. Number 1. Topping up our list is the most recent of the Bermuda Triangle disappearances. The Trislander, a British Norman Islander plane, took off from Santiago bound for New York on December 15, 2008 with 12 people on board. Only 35 minutes after takeoff, the plane ascended and disappeared from radar. A massive search and rescue mission was launched by the United States Coast Guard, but the plane was never seen again, nor was anything of it ever found.
so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it on your favorite social media sites. There's a lot more to come, so stay tuned and we'll see you back next time.